This entire military is one cohesive, dedicated force. And the threats to our nations, they don't sleep. They're watching our every move. Iran, Russia, China, North Korea, ISIS, Al-Qaeda. They may be watching this right now. Our military should not be mistaken for a cable news gabfest show. We don't care what you look like. We don't care who you voted for, who you worship, what you worship, who you love. It doesn't matter if your dad left you millions when he died or if you knew who your father was. We have been honed into a machine of lethal moving parts that you would be wise to avoid if you know what's good for you. We will not be intimidated. We will not back down. We don't want war. But if you want war with the United States of America, there's one thing I can promise you, so help me God. Someone else will raise your sons and daughters.
Military Broadcast Radio, the station that's giving veterans a voice.
Find us on the web at mbradio.us.
Opinions expressed in this program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of any entities they represent.
Find us on the web at mbradio.us.
Join Terry with Tracer Rounds every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Central to hear interviews with veteran artists, veteran business owners, and businesses that support veterans. Tune in to see if you're on target. Catch us on Roku, Amazon Fire TV, and MB Radio.
Welcome to Tracer Rounds. You're on Military Broadcast Radio, giving veterans a voice. And we have a veteran in studio today, and her name is Jane Babcock. And she is an Army Reserve veteran, correct?
And active duty 4 times.
And active duty.
Yeah, 4 DD-214s.
Wow, there you go. So can you tell us a little bit about your military service, maybe your MOS, and maybe some of the places you served, and maybe some of the big takeaways from your service?
Well, I started out at the age of 23. I looked at the military as an apprenticeship. Go to school, get some experience, and then go out to the outside world. And that's what I did. But I ended up in the crypto field. So between basic and AIT, I was in service over a year.
Wow.
Spent a little over 3 years. Went to Korea doing maintenance work there, came back to the States, and they went, "Oh, we've slotted you for an installer's course."
You're like, thanks.
I didn't ask for that.
Right.
I wanted to stay in Korea, and you wouldn't let me. And
Right.
so I learned how to install equipment, and I traveled all over the United States, saw 26 states in 2.5 years.
Wow.
Bending conduit, putting in duct work, going on ships, Air Force bases, just all over the place. Fort Bragg, Hope Field next to Fort Bragg.
Yeah.
Our team went over and gutted the tower, and we were throwing the old equipment out over the railings and stuff like that. And I was the only one rope qualified, so I got to ride up and down as we pulleyed the new equipment up or the larger pieces down.
That's
cool. Yeah, it was fun. It was a blast. I was the only one that could do the rappelling part, so I got to do it.
That's super cool. Not too
yeah.
many people can say they've done that.
Yeah. Got out of the service as an E5 and landed a job working for a small data center where they were taking 2 small data centers and making them into one huge one.
Mm-hmm.
And it was an empty room when we started. We ran all the cable and the ductwork and everything and put all the equipment in and did all the punch downs on the board on the wall and ran the electricity and everything. And after a year, I was sitting around twiddling my thumbs going, I wonder if something's going to break tonight. Boredom. So applied for a job and actually went for an interview, got hired, showed up the first day, and the HR department said, "Who are you and why are you here?" And I said, "Well, John Dooley offered me a job." And they were like, "Oh, John, did you hire this girl?" "Oh, yeah." So I worked for an underwater acoustical research contractor, government contractor for a few years going on ships and submarines, installing electronics, going out in the sea and doing navigational plotting and being there in case equipment failed.
Wow, that's a pretty impressive job. I mean, like, I don't see too many people that can say that they've been and done all of that in their careers.
Yeah. And that was just the start. But after 11 months out, I missed the military. So I went back to the recruiter and said, I want to go back. And he said, Oh, you want to go back active? And I said, No, I don't miss it that much. Can I
Just a
do the
little bit.
weekend thing? Yeah. Can I do the weekend thing where I could just, see these people once a month?
Right,
So we
exactly.
did. And we were attached to a FEMA site outside of DC.
Mhm.
So we responded to Hurricane Hugo, San Francisco earthquake, stuff like that. We had 10 kW boosters, so we could literally communicate via radio all the way to California.
That's awesome.
And we did the Virgin Islands during Hurricane Hugo. The second day, the day after the storm is actually the most dangerous for those islands because then the storm surge comes in.
Yeah.
So it completely flooded the ports. It had the hospital was up a part of the way up a hillside. It was flooded the first 2 floors and stuff
Oh,
like
wow.
that. So their generators were out. We did all the communications as to push to talk radio at
Yeah.
night, letting civilians there talk to their families back here. And then
Oh,
during the day, we coordinated with the Navy and the Red Cross on all that stuff.
that's pretty cool. You and I did a lot the same work. I worked as part of Army North or Northcom and
Okay.
doing, I worked with the DCO, the Defense Coordinating Officer in FEMA Region 6, and
There
we
you go.
responded to all the hurricanes on the Gulf Coast or
Yep.
the Gulf of America now instead of the Gulf of Mexico, I guess. I don't know. Depends on who you're talking to, I think.
Yeah.
But
It
yeah,
does.
we did a lot of the same things, it sounds like. Except for I didn't well, I pulled cable because we actually had to set up the talk. So we had to like
Mhm.
set everything up, from start to finish. We set up fax, we set up the network, we set up all the stuff to make the talk happen. So I know a little bit, but I certainly wouldn't know to your degree of how to set up a whole room with actual wired stuff for sure.
Well, and that's where I picked up my second MOS. They trained me right on site to be a teletype operator and a radio operator
Oh
because,
wow.
again, it was a situation where, yes, they had crypto equipment, but a lot of times we didn't have it at the distant end, and or it was just running in the background and not breaking down. so,
Oh
so I had to pick up some other communication skills in that unit.
wow.
But then I came back to Wisconsin, switched to a different reserve unit, and that was a military intelligence school at Fort McCoy,
Yeah.
and I had to go to school for that, but they civilian acquired skills for me and picked up um, computer operator.
There you go.
So it was like, okay, you already know how to run a computer. Why should we send you to school? Here, you're
Right.
officially
That's
a computer
awesome.
operator. So don't look over those skills that you learned in the civilian world when you're thinking about job training in the military world too.
Yeah.
And don't overlook it when you come out because they took all my military and civilian experience and
Yeah.
in 9 classes through the adult learning program at our tech school, they gave me 2 associate degrees and a technical degree by just taking 9 classes.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That military transcript does help you. It helped me with my bachelor's degree, and I really appreciated them allowing me to use those credits to, you know, towards my degree. So that was nice. I agree with you wholeheartedly. You need to take advantage of whatever military experience you have and apply it to what you're trying to do or the current role for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So I got done with that and had an opportunity to come out on a recruiting tour. And I loved the job, but I hated the stress.
Yeah, I
I
can't
loved
imagine.
going into the high school, talking to the kids, hearing what their dreams and expectations and goals were in life.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a job that is highly stressful. 2 years in, I got in my gov car one day and I just wanted to keep driving.
I don't blame you.
I had no idea where I was going, why I was going. I just needed to go away,
Yeah.
is what was in my head.
Right.
And so when I finally came back to the station and turned in the gov car, um, my first sergeant, my station commander, referred me to the first sergeant, who then sent me to Fort Knox. And I walked into mental health, and the first thing they said to me is, "Oh, you're a recruiter. No wonder you're here."
Exactly. Yeah, I can't imagine the amount of pressure. I really can't.
Yeah. Well, a lot of recruiters, they live on cigarettes and caffeine.
Yeah, and
And
no
that's pretty
sleep.
much what I was doing. Yeah.
Yeah, no
I
sleep.
was, I had lost like 35, 40 pounds in my
Oh, wow.
first 2 years in recruiting command. Uh, Granted, I was a little, I met the pinch test or whatever you want to call it, the overweight chart, but I was chubby, shall we say. I was getting there, but I lost all that weight and more while I was
Yeah.
on recruiting. And they said, no, you're not a broken toy. You just need to learn how to cope better.
Yeah.
And you need how to learn to say no. That was the hard part because they were saying, oh yeah, you know, after 12 hours in the day, you should be able to tell your station commander or your first sergeant no. And it's like, you have no idea what recruiting is like, do you? That's not
Right.
how it works in the real military.
Right.
But a year later, got out and found a great unit. I was a platoon mama, and I was out at the high tech in California doing some training because we were getting ready to go to Afghanistan.
Mhm.
And that's when I got injured. And we knew I'd broken my elbow and then that I had injured my shoulder, but it was all purple. My face was all purple on one side and everything.
Oh, good grief.
Didn't know the extent of the damage. I
Yeah.
finished the training, got the cast cut off, went back to home station, and they went, oh, okay. Well, we're going to be leaving in a couple months. But within those few months, all of a sudden I started losing sensation of my right hand and arm. So I went to the neurosurgeon who did an MRI and said, yeah, we got to cut your throat. You have a collapsed disc in your neck,
Oh my
and we need to replace that with a cadaver disc, and then put some metal strapping and screws in there. Excuse me. And then walked into the reserve unit, stoned on Vicodin, and said, hey,
Oh, jeez.
I'm not going to be ready to go to deploy.
Yeah.
And they just went, oh, well, you got 21 and a half. Sign here. You're in the retired reserves. And once you get your surgery and everything, if everything's good, go down to MEPS, get a physical, and then you can join us overseas. Which is not true because it takes an act of Congress to get you out of the retired reserve status.
Yeah.
So I didn't know any better. I just signed there and left.
Yeah.
And never went to the VA, never filed a claim. 4 years later, I saw an ad in the paper for a county veteran service officer. And I said, oh, what's that? And then I learned what they were, and I went, oh, how can I be one?
Right.
So I got the job, went to the training, learned how to do all my stuff, passed the test, got all the accreditations that I needed from the national organizations and stuff, and became a veterans service officer. So that turned out to be the best, most life-saving and mental health thing I needed because it put me back with my family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you made a difference as a VSO. VSOs make a difference. They are a godsend to people that don't have a clue of where to start, where to go, like how to navigate, because it seems like a bridge too far when you have to do some of this stuff on your own. You're like, I don't even know how to do this, where to start. I don't know how to connect my service to some disability that I have now or some chronic illness, injury. You just don't know. And so without somebody like you with your expertise and all your navigational skills in that VA network, there would be a lot of people that don't get anything when it comes to a rating or care for that matter.
Yeah. Unfortunately, that's very true. VA publishes its own analytical reports every year,
Yeah.
and the data shows that probably just about 50% of eligible veterans get their compensation or their pension, which is an income-based program we'll talk about later.
Okay.
And less than 25% of our surviving spouses and or children get their benefits. Have you ever seen a VA ad about compensation or chemical exposure or nope?
Yeah, not really. And, a lot of the dependents don't know a lot about the veteran service because he or she doesn't talk about it necessarily, or they don't really understand what they're talking about. So it doesn't really make any sense. And so they don't really take it in and understand unless they've had some service too, or maybe had some, connection with another veteran in their life, maybe a father or a mother or a grandfather, that kind of thing. And then they have some exposure to what those processes might be, but otherwise they're just flying by the seat of their pants. They have no idea.
And everybody thinks of VA as a healthcare clinic, the hospitals. And
Right.
why would a surviving spouse of a veteran that died 10 years ago, who served 40 years ago, think they're eligible for a benefit?
Well, you bring that up, and I had just messaged my mom because I was curious because my stepfather was in the Air National Guard, but he was sent over when he was still like in junior high, not even in high school. He was sent over because of his age, I guess. He was sent over to the Korean War, and he didn't have any problems then. He came back, and then later in life, he had some kind of lung cancer that wasn't typical. Like they hadn't really seen it. It wasn't the kind you would typically be diagnosed with. It was something really different. Like they almost called it, I don't think they called it a black lung, but something really different. And so I was wondering, is my mom even eligible for anything? Because he never got a rating on that. I know he didn't.
Yeah, it's very highly likely. I had recently, before I retired in 19, I had worked with a veteran that had brain cancer, which is not on the Agent Orange list, but it is on the new PACT Act list for our Middle East people, our Middle East veterans. So glioblastoma was not on the Agent Orange list. And I had worked with no less than 10 guys with brain cancer, the same kind of brain cancer, and all but one went to Vietnam. So tell me there's not a relationship.
Right.
And so he came in and he said, I've got this brain cancer, I'm terminal, I'll be gone within probably 10 months. And so we said, okay, we're going to file it. And because it's a terminal cancer, you can put it to expedite. So 2 weeks later, we got the call that we're denying it. And we said, yeah, we expected that. It's not a presumptive.
Yeah.
So we did our first appeal. They denied that. And then I handed him off to a VA lawyer out in California. Now, VSOs are free. They don't cost you anything. They do training every year. They have this wonderful network. When I first started, I could put messages out on the forum and say, hey, I've got this guy. This is the situation. And what should I do? And I get all this feedback from VSOs all across the country. But there are people out there that are called claim sharks.
Yes, there are.
Okay. And there are companies out there that are claim sharks who have already changed their company name 3 or 4 times because of lawsuits.
I don't doubt it.
Because of illegal processes they do. And so, charging a veteran $5,000 or a widow $5,000 for a presumptive claim that takes maybe 2 hours worth of paperwork, and you're going to charge them $5,000.
That's crazy.
And they don't have the relationship with the VSO in the VA to be able to call up and say, hey, look, I've got this guy's claim in for 3 different, knees, elbows, whatever. And he just got a diagnosis of cancer. That liaison can walk up and pull that claim file and put it on the top of the stack because it's a terminal illness.
Yeah.
So I literally got claims. I had one claim, I was able to get it done in 2 days.
That's awesome.
Because the guy was leaving this world very quickly.
Yeah.
And so if you know the right person, if you have those relationships inside VA, which is part of what a VSO builds,
Yeah.
And the ability to look in the computer and say, whoa, wait a minute. You sent my knee guy to get an exam from an ear, nose, and throat doctor? That's not legal.
Right.
Order a new exam.
Yeah.
So we could see things sometimes and catch them before they screwed up the claim.
Yeah. Well, that's good.
Yeah. More than once, I had to call a rater and say, hold on a minute. You're denying him based on not being in Vietnam, but we sent you the ship log that shows that he was the guy that ran for the mail on the docks every day. So, yes, he was boots on ground, or that ship, here's the longitude and latitude on the logbook that shows that that boat was upriver.
Yeah.
So, stuff like that.
Well, we need to take a quick break. We're a little bit over, but we're going to take a quick break. And then when we come back, we'll kind of talk about how someone can start a claim and what the processes they need to go through. And then maybe where you come in, and then maybe how you can help somebody or just help them navigate who to talk to get more information. So we're going to play Dallas Alexander, Child of This Land.
Cool.
Everywhere I go, trouble seems to find me. There ain't no place that I fit in. Raised in the backwoods, and just like him, oh, I'm a fighting man. Well, I was born with a gun in my hand, child of this land. Lord, please save me from my sins, out here howling in the wind. Look to the west, see your sunset. Someday kneel at the pew. This old wasteland, it is my land. Around here I do what I wanna do. Well, I was born with a gun in my hand, child of this land. Lord, please save me from my sins, out here howling in the wind. Well, I was born with a gun in my hand, child of this land. Lord, please save me from my sins, out here howling in the wind. Everywhere I go, trouble seems to find me. There ain't no place that I fit in.
Opinions expressed in this program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of any entities they represent.
Find us on the web at mbradio.us.
Welcome back to Tracer Rounds, and I'm Terry, your host, and I have with me in studio tonight Jane Babcock, who was a VSO, who is now a Veterans Benefit Educator, and we thank her for what she does because she's helped a lot of people. I can't even imagine how many people you've helped over the years. Do you have any kind of idea how many claims you might have put a hand on?
Somewhere between, I think between 1,000 and 1,200 is what I
Wow.
filed.
Wow.
Uh,
That's
um,
amazing.
and I had a pretty high rate of first time in, first time award because I knew I'm one of those geeky people that reads the regulations. And
Yes, I
so I
imagine
gave the
there's a
VA
lot
what
of
they
reading.
asked for and then got the awards.
That's really awesome because there's not a lot of people. Well, I mean, there are some, but some people just pay that extra, go that extra mile, just pay that extra special attention to some things that really make a difference for people. Because I was listening to a podcast you were on recently, and somebody's claim was denied, and they said no, the veteran wasn't in that area, no way they could qualify for this disability because it's not service connected, they weren't there. And you went and found that they were in the water one day in that area, which then again qualified that person. And I don't know that anybody else would have gone to that level of detail and said, let me just look at everything he's done, possibly could have been in anywhere near this area. And then you just did that, and you got the claim awarded, and that's pretty darn awesome in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. I have some really special guys that still live in my head. My veterans, my guys always, for now and ever. One of my guys was, he kept saying that he'd been in Korea, he'd been shot, he was in the rubble in the frozen winter for like a day and a half. Marines came in and saved him, and he had no proof. No proof that he'd been shot, much less that he'd been frostbit.
Right.
And frostbite is something that 40 years later can take up, like in his case, it was up over his knees by then that he couldn't feel his legs.
Oh, wow.
So I went out on the internet and I posted all these messages on Marine sites. He remembered the patch, the valley, the field hospital he was in, all this stuff.
Yeah.
Googled and searched and found these places, wrote these little messages. I'm a CVSO working with Jim so and so. Do you remember the events in this valley, this field hospital, this Marine unit, blah, blah, blah. And 6 months later, I got a phone call. I'm one of the Marines that you're looking for.
What
He
are
was
the
still
odds?
connected. Yeah, and he was still connected with half a dozen of the guys that had helped save these guys that day. So the best part about that is, yes, I got this veteran a 100% rating because he was literally unable to walk by the
Yeah.
time his rating came back. But that guy came up the next summer from Ohio, picked my guy up, and took him down to Indiana to the Marine Reserve unit reunion.
Yes.
So he got to thank 6 of the guys.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, he was just like, I don't care if the VA never gives me nothing. I got to thank them.
Yeah,
But-
that means everything, It really
Mhm.
does. Just that connection back to those people that meant so much, that made a difference in your life, and you get to actually say thank you, and they're still around for you to do that.
Yep.
That's so
Oh,
awesome.
yeah. Today, like I said, I filed all those claims with VA. I had a really high rate. I did a lot of evidentiary stuff, changing death certificates and everything else, getting that approved through the courts,
Wow.
get the widow the benefits. But today I teach on LinkedIn, just started writing articles. People started saying, hey, I got some questions for you. And so we do video calls, great feature on LinkedIn. If you're connected with somebody, there's a little camera icon on the top of your communications thread.
Yeah.
And you click on it, set up an instant meeting or schedule it for later. And then you can do face to face with the person. I do those almost every day, sometimes several times a day.
Do you really?
Yep. And I do podcasts. Just a couple hours ago, phone rings. It's a lady that one of my veterans that I spoke to via LinkedIn
Yeah.
had given her my phone number because when I'm connected, I send them a list of VA tools to the information about compensation, presumptive list, the wartime veterans pension and surviving spouses pension. which is another huge program that is way underutilized because nobody knows it exists.
Yeah, I've never heard of that.
Yep. The youngest guy I put on it was 22. He was permanently disabled after his military service.
Yeah.
His age, he only got SSI, which at that time was $850 a month. But
Yeah,
he'll
that's
never
not
work
enough.
again.
Yeah.
So from the VA wartime pension, we got him another $950.
Doubled, little over double, what he was getting. So that's, awesome.
And
because
everything in the VA is free to him because
that's,
he meets the barely above poverty level limits.
yeah. I mean,
So
that's
this is
sad
what
that
we
that's
do.
the case, though, that he barely meets the limits and he was, service connected disabled. So it seems like there should be some other kind of compensation that goes along with that to bring you just more than above poverty.
Well, that's just it. In his case, he had like a 20% rating, not a lot of income.
Oh, okay.
So because I'd enrolled him in VA healthcare, even though he hadn't been to VA yet and gotten an appointment, his injuries were such a traumatic brain injury, a spinal compression injury, and everything in the emergency room. Family didn't know if he'd live. And I called the VA and said, hey, he's a new enrollee. Here's the hospital he's at. He was 2 months in ICU up here, and all those bills went to the VA.
Oh, that's good.
Then once he was stable, the VA sent an ambulance, picked him up, and took him down. We have a great spinal center at the Milwaukee VA.
Mm-hmm.
And he was down there for probably 6-8 months learning how to walk and do all sorts of things. And although he's going to be mentally 12 the rest of his life, he can at least, get himself up, get dressed, and do all that kind of stuff. But mom makes sure he takes his meds. Mom goes over and picks him up from the apartment just down the street from her and takes him to the doctor and things like that. So, yeah, at least he's living at 130% of poverty through the pension program.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, that's tough. Joel, I don't know if you saw the message, but Joel, our president, said hello to you. He was excited to see you. And we had another a spouse who's also a veteran on there, just talking about that it was nice to have you on because, what you're providing is a good information to our community because we really need to know what our benefits are and not enough of us do. I mean, like when I retired from the reserves, I don't know about you, but when I retired, I got a binder. That's like it's like an encyclopedia, and can you digest all that information? No. Then and I had to like drive 4 hours to a class they wouldn't send me to get that. And there's so much crammed into one small day that you cannot possibly like take it all in and remember it and commit it to memory because it's just overload. I mean, it's not like it's spread out and they give you like little bits of information at a time and say, okay, I still haven't applied for my retirement. I still haven't applied. I'm like, that just is too much paperwork. I don't even know if I can get my records anymore. They want this record and that record and the other record. And I'm like, you don't have all those?
I'm going to tell you the first thing every veteran should do is find their nearest accredited veteran service officer, VSO rep. Okay?
Yes.
Most of them are veterans themselves.
Yes. I find that to be true.
Yep. And they are paid by your county, your state, your tribe, or your organization like VFW, DAV, American Legion, all those guys. Yeah. Okay? So they are paid and they send them to training every year and they've done a background check and they have to sign an ethics statement saying they will not charge veterans.
Yes, because you should not have to pay for that service.
Correct. And that VSO is going to walk you through all the benefits you're currently eligible for and what you may become eligible for down the road. What your state benefits are, what your federal benefits are. And then they're going to help you fill out the forms. Nowadays, it's all done right on the computer. I would be sitting at my desk and just typing away.
Yeah.
Person's answering my questions. I'm putting the information into the computer. Okay, you were diagnosed with this Lou Gehrig's disease, ALS, is a presumptive for all military. So if you were active duty for more than 90 days and you develop Lou Gehrig's or ALS, you can file a claim to the VA.
Wow.
What that means is, because for every 3 people who get it, 2 are usually veterans. We are twice as likely. So the VA can't say, oh, well, we can tell which one of you would have gotten it without your
Yeah.
military service and which one's got it because of the military. So we're just going to grant anybody that has this disease that served. And that more than likely entitles your family for ongoing compensation after you're gone.
Yeah.
But it also gives free health care, in-home care. If you get to the point you need a nursing home, VA will pay for that nursing home. And again, education benefits for your kids, CHAMP VA healthcare, which is very similar to TRICARE.
Yeah.
So even if the veteran only served 2 or 3 or 4 years, or even just one deployment, they might have only been gone 9 months.
Yeah.
That entitles the family to all these ongoing benefits. So it's so important to know your VSO. They're going to give you that list like I give when I connect with people on LinkedIn. That's why I do everything in links and attachments so that they can go back to it later when they need to refresh themselves.
Yeah, I appreciate that. You sent it to me too. So I plan on trying to digest all that information because there's a lot that you send.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's your resource list is what it is. But the last link I send is your how to find your local accredited VSO.
I know mine. I had him on my show. So
Wonderful. Wonderful. But that VSO is somebody that you should visit with at least once every 5 years. As of January, they just added 4 more cancers to the presumptive list for our Southwest Asia guys.
Wow.
So as a CVSO, I always told guys and gals, I always call us guys, but
It's just a generic term. I don't think anybody takes any exception with it. At least I don't.
yeah. And it's like, you live in a tent with 28 guys, you want to be one of the guys.
Right. You're
It's
just
like,
all the
okay,
guys. Yes.
you guys go to breakfast, I'll get changed.
Right.
So, but those 4 cancers, and I used to tell veterans all the time, if you have any major health issue, any type of cancer or neurological condition or anything like that going on, file that claim.
Yeah.
Put that claim in with the VA, because if it comes out on the list 2 years from now, yours is already in there. It's already been looked at. It's already in their computer system that, hey, here's a guy that served in 2007 overseas and he filed for kidney cancer. Well, they just put it on the list in January. So
Yeah.
hopefully if VA is doing their job right, which they're supposed to do, is search their databases, pull all those claims back up and go, oh, now we have to award this guy.
Wow.
And they'll take care of doing it for you. But if you pass away and it's not already in there, now your spouse may not know.
Yeah.
She's never heard that kidney cancer went on the list.
Right.
So now the VA is sending her a letter saying, hey, we owe this guy this many months of back pay, and we owe you the option of, you may be eligible for survivor's compensation.
Yeah.
Please fill out your paperwork.
I think a lot of people wouldn't even think to do that, to think, well, if it's not qualified now, then I'm not getting anything later, so I just might as well forget it. I wouldn't even think that they'd go back in and look at the old claims and then pull them back up and go, hey, well, he applied for this that we're now considering eligible, and so now he is eligible or she is eligible.
Yeah. It's so much better now. Like the Agent Orange guys, it was all paper.
Yeah.
It was, and in 2008, when the economy went upside down and all those foreclosures happened, it could take 3 years to get a non-terminal claim through.
Wow. That's a long time.
Yeah, having that already in there. And of course, every time they announce, 4 new cancers or whatever, the VA gets flooded.
Yeah, I can
But if
imagine.
yours is already in and processed,
Yeah.
how much faster and how much easier. Niemer is a guy from Vietnam that sued the federal government and actually won, saying, hey, look, I have this condition, I filed for it, and it came out on the list 10 years later, and I have the right to have that 10 years of back pay.
Yeah.
Even though, because VA, it's not my fault, you all didn't do the research to get this on the presumptive list.
Right.
Now, Agent Orange is the only one currently that they'll go back. But of course, all of our younger veterans and a lot of the VSO, the organizations, are trying to fight to get this same standard applied to our Gulf War and Southwest Asia guys. But one of my veterans from Vietnam filed back in his 30s when he had his second heart attack.
Wow.
And then had a couple more heart attacks in his 50s and ended up having to leave work early.
Yeah.
And when they redid his claim and charted out, 100% after the heart attack, so many months later, his heart was test showed this, so we dropped him to this, and they did it all out, $480,000 in back pay.
Wow.
Yeah.
He never saw that coming, I don't imagine.
And I'm fighting for the same thing for a widow right now. She was having a hard time proving her deceased husband was blue water, but I found the one ship log that shows that he was. And so I sent it in, and 2 weeks ago she called and said, I got my DIC. And I said, good. Now we're going to try and get that back pay back to 07 when he died, when you filed the first time.
Yeah. Can you imagine how much help that would be for her?
Oh, yeah. That'd probably be around 150,000.
Yeah, that would take care of her probably for the rest of her life if she used it right. I mean, if you used it sparingly and didn't go off on some tangent of some kind and spend it. But, I liken you to some type of a detective, really, because you're just looking for clues and then putting the pieces together to make the whole package of submission, with all the details that go along with providing the evidence of service connection, or at least that they were in the area at that time and then should therefore be qualified. So, I think you probably missed your calling a little bit too. You could have been a detective really easily too, I think.
Yeah, probably. Like I said, I'm a geek. I like reading the regulations and interpreting them in different ways and seeing when I can win. It's like my brain cancer guy. The only reason I couldn't win the claim was because I didn't have the medical evidence, the medical quote nexus, they call it.
Yeah.
Okay. That lawyer has a genetic oncologist who took my guy's blood and broke it down to the genome level and showed the VA he has no cancer markers. This body should never have developed cancer.
Yeah.
So it had to be an outside influence. And the only major outside influence or chemical exposure he had was Agent Orange. So that's what won my guy his brain cancer, was a genetic oncologist. I didn't know this, but she had this guy. So
That's awesome.
yeah, if your spouse was a Vietnam guy and he died of brain cancer, or God forbid you're an Agent Orange guy right now suffering with glioblastoma, please work with the VSO and then contact Katrina Eagle, because she can't take the claim till you're at the appeal level.
Yeah.
Then she can take over. And so from him coming into my office to her advancing it on the docket at the board so that she could get it there early, it was just over 3 months that he
That's
got
quick.
his award. Yes. But
That's
unfortunately,
quick.
2 months later, we were doing his wife's DIC.
That's too bad. It's
Yeah.
really sad.
File your stuff, guys, because it could mean a financial boon and benefits for your survivors.
Yeah, I would say definitely do that. How long were you a VSO?
11 and a half years.
11 and a half. And so how long have you been doing this veteran education on benefits?
Well, I retired in 2019,
2019.
summer of 2019, and had a health scare. VA
Oh.
caught, and the civilian doctors didn't.
Oh, wow.
And civilians kept saying I had exercise asthma, but my VA doctor said, I don't think that's asthma. Ran a bunch of heart tests, and they found 8 blockages in my heart.
Oh, my goodness.
No wonder you can't breathe.
Right. Oh, my goodness.
So, but the VA, they're involved with research on so many things through the National Institute of Health, the American Red Cross. They are doing all sorts of. One of my guys with prostate cancer, he had his prostate out, but it came back again 5 years later. They did the radiation chemotherapy. 5 years later, his PSA started going up again. So he started participating in radiation research out in Texas through the VA.
Mm-hmm.
And they would pay to fly him to Texas.
Wow.
Every month for his treatments. The VA has their own brain bank. So if you have a TBI,
Yeah.
if you're willing to, they will accept your brain after you're gone
Oh, wow.
and use it as part of their research. So, you know, it's incredible some of the stuff they're involved with. But don't not do something. And do it today, because you don't know if you get to be here tomorrow. What you do today may protect your family.
That's really true. I mean, no one's promised the future, so we don't know what the future holds. And so the sooner we do some of these things, the better, because, we want our families taken care of at the end of the day. We don't want them suffering because we failed to act.
Right. Right now, the big thing in the news is the threat to reduce a lot of VA benefits, reduce ratings, and things like this. Okay, first and foremost, that has never been not discussed in the VA. That discussion has been going on for years, if not decades.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's not just the Republicans, it's not just this current administration. It's been going on for years. Believe me, we had this flare up a couple times when I was CDSO. But it is also something that if you're already rated, you're going to be grandfathered. So that's not going to change.
That's
And
good.
yes, the VA will occasionally threaten to reduce a veteran's benefits. That's usually when they hit the 5-year mark. And that's because they think you may have improved, especially when it comes to things like mental health.
Oh, I
It
see.
is a disability that can fluctuate.
Yeah, I would
Okay.
think that's true.
But the easiest thing you could do, if you ever get one of those letters, is write your own personal statement about how your disability impacts you daily. What is your worst day like? Okay, you walk into a comp and pen exam and the doc says, "How you doing today?" And you say, "Okay," and you seem cheerful. So the doctor says, "Well, yeah, heck yeah, his mental health has improved." But 3 days before that, you had to leave a wedding because it was just too many people and too much noise, and oh my God, I got to get out of here.
Yeah.
Tell them about those episodes. Tell them about the fact that you can sleep 12 hours, that maybe you're back to self-medicating. Maybe you're doing other things that are the only way you cope. And
Right.
if you're on medication, if you went off the medication, you'd go out in left field or you have severe back pain again. Well, the VA, hello, my back didn't get better. I'm actually taking more medicine than I was taking when you rated me 5 years ago.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
If
sometimes you
medicine,
just have to be told.
yeah, well, if medicine's fixing it, I mean, it's not fixed. It's just pacifying the,
Mhm.
how you're feeling about it or how it's feeling. So, I mean, you're not better. If you stop taking the medicine, the conditions still exist and you're still in pain. You're going to be immobile or whatever the case may be. So, yeah, I mean, I think you need to be honest about it because most of us, like I've heard everybody say, "Oh, I'm fine. I'm fine." They just deal with the pain, they just work through it, and they just keep moving on. It's like, no one's got time to listen to me whine. Let me just suck it up. And so that's what we do.
Yeah, yep. But yet, if it's your child or your spouse or your parent, you're telling them, go to the doctor,
Yeah, exactly.
take that
Exactly that.
medicine. Mental
Mhm.
health medicine doesn't mean it's the end all be all to fixing the problem. And it
True.
doesn't mean a lifetime commitment to that medicine. I've been on and off my medications multiple times in the last few years. I find that winter is very hard on me. The winter I lost a family member was
Mhm.
extremely hard on me. And again, I just wanted to check out from life. I didn't want to commit suicide. I wasn't suicidal. I just didn't want to function for a while.
Didn't want to people. Some people just don't want to
Yeah.
people.
So went on my medication, got back to the middle of the road where I wasn't excessively happy or excessively depressed,
Yeah.
got myself back into the right kind of thinking to stay in the middle of the road, got through it, and I was able to wean myself back off the meds. Sometimes it's a couple years, sometimes it's only a few months. It depends on what life's throwing at you.
Yeah, that's so
So,
true. Stressors change, they come and they go, and like you said, events can trigger episodes, and you weren't prepared for it. It just comes on, and you don't know when it's going to start, and you don't know when it's going to end either. It's just something you have to deal with and navigate, and then hopefully you come out well on the other side of it, but you don't know what the middle of it looks like. So,
and yet people will take medications for something like mental health. Okay. One of the major side effects is it impacts your libido.
mm.
ED for the guys, loss of interest for the gals. That is actually a not rateable. It is a service connected condition you can file for. Because if you weren't taking this medicine for your service connected thing, you wouldn't have this other thing, which in the case of loss of libido, or it's loss of use of a creative organ is what they call it. So that's a special monthly compensation of $100 and some that just gets added on top of your rating, whether you're 50% or whether you're 100%. It's just that set amount of dollars.
I don't think anybody would have known they could qualify for something like that.
Yep. There's all these little things. Like if you're enrolled in the VA healthcare, there's actually a VA dental insurance program for dependents.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Is it free, or is it something you pay for?
It is something you pay for. Delta Dental and MetLife Dental both came to the VA and said, hey, we'd like to offer veterans discounted insurance. And so there's 3 different programs for each company. Obviously, if you're older and you're single and it's going to cost you a little bit, as opposed to the one that has teenage kids that might need braces.
Right. Yeah. Braces are
So
not cheap.
it's a 3-level system.
Right.
And so if you're enrolled in VA healthcare, check out the dental. Especially if you're paying some astronomical amount of money for it, you may
Right.
be able
Yeah.
to get less expensive.
Right. Probably the policy probably is pretty good, and it probably doesn't cost a lot. The premiums are probably pretty low. We have Tony from Inside the Who's Your Mind that just checked in, and MJ from the Punch.
It's in the it's
The
in there.
world of conscious positive thinking. I always have to
There you go.
say that one, like I have to think about it. But we welcome them. And they were also mentioning how important it is to get this information out there. And thank you for, providing this talk for us, because, like we just don't know what we don't know. There's so much to know about the VA. And like you say, most people think it's just the hospital, but really there's more to the VA than just the treatment facility. There is other arms and components to the VA that do different things.
And even if a veteran is rated 0%, say for hearing loss, just a tiny little bit of hearing loss from when they went in and when they get out, that widow or widower is entitled to up to $978 a month for the funeral, and up to $970, not per month, but stipend.
Yeah.
For funeral, and one for plot.
Oh, wow.
So that's almost $2,000.
Yeah, that's nothing to discount for sure. We do have a question from Tony. He's the host from Inside the Who's Your Mind, and he wants to know if you get a percentage rating of at least a 0, that you can be reevaluated and have the number increased. How easy can that process be, and what would potentially be needed to start the process?
Okay. Yeah, of course. Anytime your condition has worsened, one of the things, 38 Code of Federal Regulation, 38 CFR knee, that will show you the chart for knees and all the different conditions that could be in the knee. Is it a cyst in the back of the knee? Is it bad cartilage? Is it you broke your knee and the bones themselves are being evaluated? And then it shows you the list of symptoms. So maybe you're at 0 now, but now you've increased and you have loss of range of motion in a knee. That may put you at 10%. Or you have to have your knee is service connected and you have to have a knee replacement. Eventually, I've had 2 surgeries on my knee, one in service as a recruiter, and eventually they're going to replace that knee. When they do, it will be 6 months to a year, depending on what kind of hardware they put in me.
Yeah.
That knee will be 100%. just the knee. So my nerve damage, my screwed up neck, my 2 torn tendons, rotator cuff, broken elbow, bad knee, they're still going to add up to over 60. So there's almost $300 that gets added onto my claim
Yeah.
because I fall into what's called convalescence, temporary convalescence of 100%. Anytime you have to have surgery or treatment, whether it's resident treatment, outside the VA treatment, whatever, for a service-connected condition, you can be rated 100% as long as it's greater than 30 days. You have to have a back surgery. It's going to take you more than 30 days to recover.
Yeah, for sure.
They
Definitely.
put you at temporary 100% for that back. There's a lot of veterans that miss out. They'll come in, oh yeah, I had my knee operated on last year. But your knee is service connected. Why didn't you tell me?
Right.
So I used to tell my guys, if you have any kind of surgery, you go into a resident program for PTSD. Those generally take more than 4 weeks. So in the hospital, 28 days or greater, you could be 100%. And then, like the knee, 6 months to a year, depending on the hardware they put in, they go, okay, now come back in and we'll reevaluate you. Oh, yes, now your knee has gotten better. So you've gone from 60 to 40 on your ability to move and walk and bend your knee and all that kind of stuff. But now you have this ugly scar. Or maybe now you have walked on your other leg and hip so long that other hip is now in pain because of your service-connected knee. Now you get that hip rated as a secondary. I would not have done the damage to this hip if I weren't walking badly and or leaning on it all the time because of my service-connected knee. Those are called secondaries.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people wouldn't think about that. So that's a good point. I'm glad you bring that up. We have about 4 minutes left. What else would you like to put out and let people know about, or how can they reach out to you, or what's your suggestion if they're wanting to increase their rating? They just reach out to a VSO, or what's the process, would you think, from here?
Okay. If you want to reach out to me, and I'll send you my list of links, including how to find your local VSO. I'm on LinkedIn. I put my URL in the chat there, but I'm really, if you search Jane Babcock on LinkedIn, I'm going to be the first one that pops up because I have so many connections at this point. But also you can Google me and listen to podcasts. I've been doing these now for a couple of years. So it's amazing. My son keeps going, yeah, just think your great-grandchildren are going to know what you look like.
And sound like, and how intelligent you are.
Yeah, that's creepy, But so find an accredited VSO. If you go to the va.gov website, you can find the list of accredited VSOs. Or the easiest way is 32 states mandate that every county have a Veterans Service Office. The people that are employed there have to be accredited in order to be able to file claims with VA and to be able to look inside the VA's computer system and see what's going on with your claim. So, county government, if you don't have a county mandate, then go to your state Department of Military and or Veterans Affairs. And they will have people that work in your area. Some of them cover more than one county because of population.
Right.
Some of them work at the VA regional office. Like in Milwaukee, there's like 8 or 9 of the guys that work for the state that are there because it's right next to the hospital. Or contact the posts in your region, your DAVs, your VFWs, your Vietnam Veterans of America. They know who the accredited VSO is because that's the person that helped them file their claims.
That's a good point of reference to go to your American Legion or your VFWs or those people, DAV, like you said. That's good. Well, I think we are going to have to
if somebody
end.
says that they can file your claim, but it'll cost you so much money or such a percentage of your back pay, walk away.
Very quickly,
The
yes.
VA is actively trying to shut these companies down. And like I said, some of these companies have had to switch their name multiple times because of legal stuff. So make sure they're accredited. They won't charge you. And when they see your obituary in the newspaper, they're going to reach out to your spouse and your family and say, hey, come and see us. Do you need the free headstone? They're going to make sure that a flag is there at the funeral home for your family. They're going to make sure that, the veteran wanted to be buried in a state veteran cemetery. We'll take care of the paperwork for your family.
Well,
There's so much we can do.
We have to end tonight because we have to end on time. But I want to thank you, Jane, for being on the show tonight. I learned a lot, and I hope our guests did too. And this is MBR, and we're giving veterans a voice. And our veteran today is Jane Babcock. Catch me on Reese Across America at 4 p.m. Eastern on Wednesdays.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to Military Broadcast Radio. As we wrap up today's show, we want to remind you that the podcast of today's episode will be available right after we go off the air. So if you missed any part of the show or want to listen again, be sure to check it out. And remember, we're here to support and honor our veterans. Your stories and experiences matter, and we are committed to giving you a platform to share them. That's right. We're here to give our veterans a voice. So don't forget to catch the podcast and stay connected with us. Giving our veterans a voice.